Syrian government has accepted a US-Russia brokered ceasefire deal with a cessation of hostilities to take effect from this Saturday. The agreement comes after months of negotiations to bring the battered country some semblance of peace after nearly 5 years of conflict. Well, all sides in the deal must indicate by noon Syria time this Friday whether they will comply with that truce. It excludes, of course, Islamic State and Al-Qaeda's affiliate, the Al-Nusra Front, as well as other terrorist organizations designated by the UN Security Council. Russia, Syria and the US will continue their airstrikes against those groups. We hope to go live to our correspondent in Damascus just a little later in the program. Well, in the meantime, the US Secretary of State has heralded the deal, calling it a moment of promise. He thanked Moscow, as well as other members of the Syria support group, for their commitment to diplomacy, while President Putin praised the joint efforts of Russia and the US in reaching the truce.
This deal follows intensive work by the Russian and US negotiating teams, who held several rounds of closed-door talks. Russia will work with the legitimate government of Syria, and we expect the Americans to do the same with their allies and with the groups that they support. I am convinced that through joint action with the United States, we are capable of turning the tide in Syria. We finally have a real opportunity to put an end to the bloodshed that has continued for so long.
The agreement has been welcomed by the UN Secretary-General. Ban Ki-moon called it a first step towards a more durable ceasefire in Syria. The director of UNICEF also stressed the importance of the deal in easing the plight of Syria's children. And Germany's foreign minister deemed it a window of opportunity to find a way out of that conflict. Well, there are currently dozens of militant groups involved in that Syrian war, and of course ensuring all of them comply with the ceasefire could prove challenging, as RT's war correspondent Murat Gaziev explains.
You've got potentially hundreds of groups that sign up for this. You then have to monitor all of this. You have to monitor for ceasefire violations. You have to monitor for other violations, such as, restricting the humanitarian aid convoys, for example. They have to be allowed to pass by all participants of this ceasefire. It's going to be difficult given that Russia and the United States don't have people on the ground who can go around, monitor all of this and, dish out punishment or citations as needed. They've admitted to as much in the text itself. They said, we will develop monitoring and enforcement systems as things go along, as the ceasefire takes effect. So it's wait and see to see how effective this will be. Having said that, this is a remarkable breakthrough. It affords plenty of people, plenty of opportunities, which they really need.
RT's Murat Gaziev there. Well, RT spoke earlier to Ali Rizk. He's a Middle East expert. He believes the ceasefire plan will have to overcome many hurdles before it turns to reality.
I have to be cautiously optimistic, not overly optimistic. ISIS and its allies, Al-Nusra and others, will do their utmost to try and sabotage this ceasefire. Saudi Arabia and Turkey might also view it in their interest. They do have a tendency to behave in an irrational way. And so in light of that, even if you do have American and Russian pressure, you still have the question marks as to, what these countries could do. For example, Turkey wasn't at all responsive to the American pressures to, curb the border. So Turkey does have a recent history of fending off or of trying to neglect or ignore pressures from its allies. In addition to the fact, I'm not sure how decisive the American pressure is.